The German capital was the scene of a significant European meeting as Chancellor Olaf Scholz welcomed Antonio Costa, the new president of the European Council, for talks that underscored unity amid mounting crises across the continent. Scholz opened with warm words for his guest. He reminded the audience that their collaboration had begun early in his chancellorship. I was already in Brussels on the third day of my term as newly elected federal chancellor and met with representatives of the three major institutions, Scholz recalled, underscoring the regular exchanges that had since become a defining feature of their working relationship. For Scholz, Costa's visit was more than ceremonial. It represented Europe's determination to coordinate closely at a time when global and regional challenges are testing the bloc's resilience. The German leader left no doubt about where Berlin stood. Europe must stand together and, wherever possible, speak with one voice, he insisted, framing European unity as the only viable response to geopolitical turbulence. The Chancellor went out of his way to praise Costa for his role in ensuring cohesion within the European Union. I would like to thank you very much, dear Antonio, for your tireless efforts for this European Union and also for cohesion within the European Union. This is very, very good work, which we support to the best of our ability. Costa's leadership, Scholz suggested, is crucial as the European Union prepares for key summits and grapples with economic and security dilemmas. The message was clear. Berlin sees the European Council presidency as a pivotal force in guiding the bloc through turbulence. Scholz then turned his remarks to the Middle East, recalling a recent conversation with Qatar's Emir, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. The German leader explained that he and Costa shared deep concern about the worsening situation in Gaza. I share the Council President's critical view of yesterday's events in Doha, Scholz noted, stressing that Qatar had played an important mediating role. He continued, Qatar has so far made a very important contribution to the mediation efforts for a ceasefire in Gaza. We want to focus all our efforts on achieving this ceasefire quickly. The acknowledgement of Doha's role was significant. For both Berlin and Brussels, Qatar remains a key actor capable of bridging divides in a region torn by violence. Yet Scholz's tone also carried urgency. Europe, he implied, must push harder to turn fragile talks into tangible results. The Chancellor's mood hardened sharply when the topic turned to Eastern Europe. He condemned Russia's most recent act, the violation of Polish airspace by armed drones, in the strongest terms. This is a completely unacceptable violation of Polish airspace, Scholz declared, stressing that Russia had endangered lives inside a NATO member state. He described the drone incursion as no isolated act, but part of a consistent pattern. Russia has seriously endangered human lives in Poland, a country that is a member of NATO and the European Union. This completely reckless action by the Russian government is part of a very long chain of provocations that we have been seeing for months in the Baltic region and on NATO's eastern flank as a whole. Scholz's language left no room for ambiguity. The German government condemns this aggressive behaviour by Russia in the strongest possible terms. He praised Poland for its swift response, supported by NATO allies, and highlighted the alliance's readiness to defend itself. NATO is and remains ready to defend itself, and it demonstrated this impressively last night in Poland. The incident, he explained, had triggered NATO consultations under Article 4 of the treaty, a move signalling the seriousness of the breach and the commitment to collective security. Scholz then returned to the purpose of Costa's visit, framing it as both symbolic and strategic. Costa is conducting a rapid tour of European capitals to meet nearly all EU heads of state and government within 3 weeks. Now is exactly the right time for that, Scholz said, noting the two important European Council meetings coming in October. First, an informal summit in Copenhagen on October 1st, followed by the regular Council meeting in Brussels at the end of the month. These meetings will be very important for Europe, he stressed, highlighting their focus on defence, competitiveness and the financial future of the Union. Among the top priorities for discussion is the question of Europe's defence capabilities. Scholz pointed out that this would also be a subject for the Berlin talks that evening. The Chancellor framed defence not only as a military necessity, but also as a political signal that Europe was prepared to carry more responsibility for its own security. The ongoing war in Ukraine and now provocations in Poland have made the issue urgent. Scholz's emphasis on defence capabilities reflects Germany's gradual but determined shift toward a stronger security role within Europe. The Chancellor placed particular weight on economic competitiveness. He highlighted two reports shaping current EU debates, one by former Italian Prime Minister Enrico Letta on deepening the internal market, and another by Mario Draghi, former European Central Bank President, on boosting competitiveness. These reports must be taken very seriously and form the basis of our joint work to strengthen the competitiveness of the European Union, Scholz said. Europe, he warned, risks falling behind unless it addresses structural weaknesses. We also need to mobilise more private capital so that we can overcome our structural growth weakness in Europe. This call reflects long-standing concerns that Europe has lagged in innovation and investment compared to the United States and China. For Scholz, reversing that trend is central to the EU's future influence. Another major challenge lies in the EU's financial framework. The European Commission has tabled a comprehensive proposal, and member states are now beginning the debate. Scholz acknowledged the discussion would stretch over the next 18 to 24 months, but he stressed its importance. This will be an issue for the next 1.5 to 2 years, but we will begin the discussion together, especially with regard to the sustainability of European finances, he explained. The emphasis on fiscal sustainability reflected Germany's cautious stance. While Berlin recognises the need for investment, it remains wary of debt accumulation. This balance between ambition and prudence will likely dominate Council debates in the months ahead. Summing up, Scholz painted a picture of Europe at a crossroads. The challenges are vast: bolstering defence, boosting competitiveness, securing investment and ensuring fiscal responsibility. Each requires coordination and compromise across the 27-member bloc. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I have only touched on some of the important European issues. You see, great tasks await us in Europe, he said, framing the moment as both daunting and defining. The Chancellor closed his remarks by emphasising Germany's willingness to contribute actively to European solutions. We also exchange information regularly outside of regular meetings. We meet and discuss things, and you know that Germany is ready to make a real active contribution to the success of European politics, Scholz said. He then offered a final word of thanks to Costa, reflecting both respect and partnership. I would like to thank you once again very, very much for your truly good work as the permanent president of the European Council. And with characteristic formality, he ended on a note of hospitality. With that in mind, thank you once again and a warm welcome to Berlin. The Berlin encounter underscored Europe's dual challenges, defending itself against external threats and strengthening its internal foundations. Scholz's voice mixed warmth for a partner, urgency for peace in Gaza, outrage at Russia's aggression, and pragmatism about Europe's economic and fiscal future. For Costa, the tour of capitals is not just about introductions, but about forging the unity needed for decisive action. The October summits will be an early test of whether Europe can transform dialogue into strategy. What is clear from Berlin is that Germany sees itself at the heart of these efforts as a reliable partner, a cautious financier, and a firm voice against threats on Europe's borders.